All right, welcome back to the Boomtown podcast. I'm Cameron Walker, broker owner of Cameron Walker Realty, here with my co-host Megan. Glad you guys are here. Megan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It was actually a really busy weekend.
Yeah, for you too, huh?
Yeah, you look tired. See, actually, you look great. But yeah, I had the market's moving. Yeah, people are calling up, and there's houses that we thought that have been sitting for a while are getting multiple offers.
Yeah, I actually ran into that too. I had clients in town from Monday through Friday of last week. We probably saw 35 to 40 homes, but we would have seen 45 to 50, but so many of them went under contract, even the days that we had them scheduled for tours.
Yeah, and that's kind of what this episode's about, right? We're talking about the market.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we wanted to give like a sort of an update, an overview of what's happening in the market. There's a lot going on in the country as a whole, and that has people in their feelings about the real estate market a little bit.
Absolutely.
But we want to talk about what we're seeing specifically in Huntsville.
Yeah, for sure. The Huntsville Area Association of Realtors, in conjunction with the local university here, University of Alabama at Huntsville, just put out their Q1 real estate report. And it was really interesting, and I think it really reflects what you and I are seeing out in the market. So that kind of spoke to that there's both more inventory and more sales, which the only way you can get there is if you built more homes than you've sold, right?
And there's a lot of new construction.
There is a lot of new construction out there. I saw a lot of it, and I drove past a lot of it last week. So that was a big part of it. But we also see more pending. So we're actually, if you counted like houses under contract and sold, we're up close to 10 to 15% year over year, but the inventory numbers grown even higher than that. And what I'm seeing, and I know you're seeing it too from the conversations we've had, is yes, there's inventory to go look at, but the absolute gems, the best showing houses, the best priced homes, the ones in the best location, ones in the best condition are getting multiple offers still. So despite there being more inventory, there is more buyer activity in that regard.
Yeah, the market as a whole has grown. That's what we're seeing. It's a bigger, more robust real estate market in this area than it has been year after year. And we do have all this new construction, but we have, it's moving farther and farther out as new construction does. The lots are getting a little bit smaller
for sure
each year because they're getting divided up. So those houses, those gyms that are in the great neighborhood on the big lot are getting multiple offers.
Absolutely. And that's really dependent upon condition too. So I saw some, I don't know what the opposite of a gym is, or I don't want to say it on the podcast, but I saw some of those last week too. There was one, it was staggering. As we were walking through the house, we just noticed that there was this continuous crack going through the floor. And as we changed rooms, we kept seeing the crack. And eventually we went outside, and I always walk the exterior of a home, give it a good look over, right? And there were step cracks in the foundation on the outside on both sides of this home. No disclosure whatsoever. And I'm not an engineer, but that house obviously had foundation issues, right?
Yeah.
And it was priced like it was any other home, like they didn't have a giant foundation issue. And so like there's this weird duality going on out there of homes that are priced appropriately, show well, in great condition, that sell like that and have 3, 4, 5 offers in the first weekend, and the other ones.
Yeah, and what we look at, a lot of people look at, are average days on market, and that average day on market doesn't really tell the full story.
Sure.
And in this market especially. And with all this new construction, I was talking to a client over the weekend, and they were comparing some different areas. And one of those areas was Green Mountain, which, as you know, has a ton of new construction.
Absolutely.
And his thought to me was, for the next, if I buy on Green Mountain, I love this house, but I'm going to be competing with new construction as well for the foreseeable future, and I want to sell. Right. And if I buy in this other area, which is a house that's a little bit older, but it's more towards the center of town,
right,
and I will never be competing with new construction.
That's right.
And that's something to think about.
Yeah.
Right?
Not within a realistic time frame for our lives. Right. Yeah. I'm actually dealing with the same thing with a listing right now. I have some past clients bought a house with me last year. They're selling the property that they used to live in that's now a rental. And it's directly across the street from 4 builders in one neighborhood. Mm-hmm. Their house is about the same square footage as what kind of the bread and butter for that builder is, but it's got a wraparound porch and huge half-acre lot that's got a lot of trees and has an outbuilding. It's got the wraparound porch, a deck, and a covered patio. So no way compares with those other homes across the street, yet we're in the same price point, right? And what the challenge there is, they can go across the street, buy brand new, get new warranties. This is a 40-year-old home.
Yeah.
So, but you get all the charm of a true Southern charmer, and then also the larger lot. So you have to wait on that right buyer to come along, or you have to price below where that new construction is. And my clients, they're pretty confident in the price they chose. So that's where we are. We're getting a lot of looks. Eventually we'll have a buyer, but I think people come over, see us, and at least this past weekend went across the street and bought new construction.
Yeah, it's hard, and you can, but you have to really, really make that home look beautiful, and that's a challenge. And it's financially a hardship for people to
For
put
sure.
that much money in a home right before they sell it. A lot of
Yeah.
stuff's up in the air at that point.
Yeah, they say your home's never in better condition than when you go to sell, right? And then a 40-year-old home, you've got all the systems. You have the appliances, the flooring, the foundation, the HVAC, and the roofing, right? And you can put a lot of money, and I know you recently dealt with this on the opposite side, but you can put a lot of money into a house and not increase its value at all.
Yeah, well, because the value is the value, and basically when you're looking at these systems not being up to date or not being in good condition, what you're really talking about is things that someone might want as a concession.
Right.
You're not talking about increasing the value of your home. You're talking about bringing it up to the value of the neighborhood.
Right.
Yes, at that point. And that's very confusing for people. They're like, I put this much money into this house. I want to get it back. And you're not going to get it back one for one like that. You're just going to be able to sell your house at its fair market value.
Yep.
Because that's what it's supposed to have in it, a working air conditioner.
Exactly, right? So when people move here and work with us to go look at a home, if it has a leaky roof, well, we're not buying that house, we're buying it at leaky roof prices, right?
Yeah.
Somebody goes and puts a new roof on there, they're not necessarily getting dollar for dollar because our client has the expectation they're buying a house without a leaky roof.
Yeah.
They don't care if you put it on last year or 10 years ago, right? There's certainly a dollar value there, don't get me wrong, but it is not dollar for dollar. Unless you're in a neighborhood where every roof leaks and you've got the brand new roof, which would be really odd, right?
Yeah. But I mean, we are seeing, go back to the market because
Sure.
I'm like, we are seeing competitive offers, but I mean, there is still, like, a few years ago, there was no inventory really here.
Yep.
You might be in a competitive offer situation for these houses that are very specific and they're what you want, but there is a fair amount of inventory. It might not all be what you're looking for. It might need some updating. You might have to work with it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of new construction. As far as inventory and new construction, if that's what you want, there's a lot right now still.
There's a ton of it.
I mean, I just got a couple lists sent to me from some builders in Harvest, and they're a plethora of things that are coming available within the summer, probably for buyers who are coming here and who want like a July move in or an August move in. They're going to be able to find something.
Absolutely. New construction's all over the map. There's different sizes, prices, lot sizes, different builders. And that was something I worked with my clients over here last week. We ended up going under contract on a new construction home. They kind of wanted to exhaust the resale market before we went that route. But then once we opened the door to new construction, we had 5 builders we could look at. And then we ranged everywhere from Harvest to Madison to Huntsville, Owens Crossroads, Newmarket, and Meridianville. And all of those were within striking distance of what my clients were looking for. So then it became we were picking the best option for them, not the only option. To your point from a couple of years ago, it might have been the only thing on the market. Now once you get in that right band for your budget, what you're looking for, the part of town you want to be in, and whatever other things are important to you in the home, now we might have 5, 6, 7 houses that are really within that band for you. Now, if you're looking for an outlier, a large acreage lot, a huge house, something really a unicorn out there, it's not that they don't come along, but when they do, there may be 3 or 4 people looking for them.
But, you could say that that's pretty much always going to be true, unless the market's just absolutely dead.
For sure.
If you want something, and it's true with anything, if you want something very special and unique, you should expect that you will have to pay for it.
Yeah, no, it's true. Absolutely.
And, with the new construction, we are still seeing lots of incentives, and it is May. And
Yeah.
a lot of times you don't see that level of incentivizing this late in the season. So these builders have built up expecting to, a lot of people to be moving here, because we do have a situation where we are expecting people to be moving. You want to speak to that, Cameron?
Yeah, sure. I'll speak to both points you just made. So the house I got under contract this past week, we were able to negotiate. The builder had an incentive. We were able to go above and beyond that with getting some things thrown in, some additional closing costs. So that worked out really well for my clients, and it was already a very strong incentive. But to the point of people moving here, I did a video recently where I talked about how the new FBI director has ordered effectively 500 new FBI employees to move in the Huntsville area. But there's another 1,500 coming behind that over the next couple of years. And then we just keep seeing the smoke signals, and then we're starting to see a flicker of flames underneath it about Space Command moving here. And between those, you're looking at roughly 2,000 FBI employees and then another 1,500 to 2,000 folks with Space Command. That is a huge uptick in the population here. We grow in last year roughly 10,000 people in Huntsville, another 5,000 over in the Athens market, so 15,000 altogether. This is a quarter of that over the next 2 years just from 2 employers. So it doesn't slow down any of the other movement to our area. And I think, and this is proven out to be true over the last couple of years, as things get more expensive, as interest rates either stay up or go up, Huntsville and Alabama and the Southeast in general become a haven for people financially. We have lower taxes, we have a lower cost basis, and everything here just costs a little less of the cost of living. And then when you look at somewhere else, if say inflation were 10%, just to make the number easy, if you're starting from a basis of 200, you went up $2. If you're starting from a basis of 400, you went up $4. Well, we're not in a market now from the job standpoint where people are getting pay raises. A lot of people are getting laid off or let go.
Yeah.
And so they can't absorb that 10%, certainly if they're starting from a higher starting figure, right? So the Southeast in general, Huntsville specifically, has been seen a great boon from people moving here to get away from those financial woes elsewhere if they have that kind of mobility, whether they're going into retirement or they have a remote job or they're able to take on a new position here.
So let's switch gears for a minute and talk about how this affects people moving here and what they're going to be seeing when they come to the area.
For sure. And about what it's like where they're coming from, right? Like we've had a lot of people that needed to sell a home, either before they moved here, during the process of moving here. And I know that's starting to create some challenges too.
Yeah, we have a lot of contingent offers. In fact, I'm dealing with multiple offers where everyone's offer is contingent, which is kind of crazy. Like I haven't seen that before.
Yeah.
Right now I'm in the middle of a deal and I was told there were 4 other offers, all contingent.
Yeah.
So there's obviously a lot of people still moving to this area. And depending on where you're coming from, it's going to be more or less tricky because some markets are hot and some markets are not. There are real winners and losers in this economy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know we're dealing with both ends of that spectrum, right? So we have people that we've been talking to for months who are desperately trying to move here, but they have to sell their home where they're at, like say Florida or Texas, where the markets have just really started to bottom out.
Yeah.
And they're having a hard time selling their home, so they can't move here yet. Or if they do, they've got to rent that property out down there. And that's not a risk everybody wants to take on. Then we had the flip side. I know you were just telling me this morning, you have another client that it was a $1 million plus house, and it got an offer this morning before your clients could sell where they are, and their house is going to go under contract in a day.
I have people who are actually like holding off on putting in some markets, people are holding off on dropping the house onto the market because they want to have something else lined up because they know that it'll be like a feeding frenzy in that area. It's a very, if you look nationwide, it's very unbalanced depending on where you are.
Absolutely. And that's a huge benefit of being here because you do have inventory and our market still moves, right? It has slowed down from what it was 2 or 3 years ago, but it's a balanced market, not a buyer's market or a seller's market. But yeah, I mean, that there's different pressure regardless of which end of that spectrum you're on. And even if you fall in the middle, what if your home takes 2 months to get an offer? It's not forever, but it's not immediate. what moves do you make then? It's really difficult for people to make those decisions.
Yeah. And I think that people are getting a lot of information from the national media on the housing market. And it's just, I don't think that it helps most people because everyone's market is so specific right now in this time. It's hard to even talk about the national housing market because depending on where you live, your situation could be completely different.
Absolutely. And the two phrases in real estate is location, location, location. And the second one that maybe not as many people are familiar with is real estate is always local.
Yeah.
So while, yes, say interest rates, right? Those are pretty much the same across the country. You might have slight variances based on regional or local lenders, but by and large, Wells Fargo's got the same rate, whether it's California, Alaska, or Alabama, right? But where we do see the differences in that demand for areas, the supply, some places are extremely supply constrained. They don't have the land, or they just have millions of people that either absorb the supply or their city's so large it's pushed everything out so far that you can't buy a new home and really commute into that city any longer, right?
Yeah.
So then there's effectively, for anybody working in that city, no new inventory like what we have here. You push out into the exurbs and you're 20 minutes away from downtown,
Yeah, I mean, it's clear Huntsville's still growing. And I think that there are sellers actually in the area who've probably been looking at the national news and going, is this an okay time to sell? Should I even do it? I get questions all the time. Oh, is the market soft? Sellers don't know. It's very confusing because there's a lot of information, just like about anything in this world that we live in. We are all bombarded with information. And what you need, I think, is local information if you're going to make a decision like that. And right now is a really good time if you're looking to sell in this area and maybe retire to someplace else.
Yeah.
Not that we want you to leave. You should stay. It's awesome here. But you could get a great deal in a lot of different markets and sell your house at a premium here if you do it right.
For sure. Absolutely. Right. And your point about the national media really stands true. I have always made an effort on this channel to make sure I speak to local things. Every now and then I expand out to the entire state of Alabama, one of those things that, but that's it. Really. I don't go into the Southeast. I definitely don't go into national. Again, I have a lot of advice from people to do that.
Yeah.
But I'm not trying to have a nationwide YouTube channel. I'm trying to help people that are moving here, right? Yeah. And so when you watch that national news or a YouTuber with 1 million subscribers, they're just trying to get clicks. They're making money off of advertising, what have you. Good for them, but that's not what we're trying to do here. And so I do think looking at the local area association of realtors news, the Alabama Association of Realtors, even just the local news channels. A lot of the brokers here in town do guest spots on different podcasts, different blogs. Obviously we have our podcast and our channels, but I do think focusing on that local information and getting a good, well-rounded viewpoint of what's going on in Huntsville and North Alabama specifically makes all the difference.
Yeah. And right now in North Alabama and Huntsville, the market is pretty much heating up.
Yeah.
I would definitely say, and case in point, I just got a text this morning. There was a house that my client was interested in that we've gone and videoed, and this house was on the market for 10 months last year. It was pulled off the market around Christmas, and it got dropped last week. I just got a text this morning that there is an offer on it. I need to contact my client if they want to put an offer. And this is a house that's over $1 million, right? So we're looking at that segment of the market. Some things are moving.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you have another client that's repatriating, and I know he watches so high, but he just went up in a multiple offer situation too. And it's and these are higher price point houses, they're up in the market. And it's that didn't used to be the case. It used to be, the $300,000 house. Yeah, that might be a problem. But, when you're looking at $750,000, $1 million, those used to be, you were the only offer for a month.
Yeah.
And now we're competing.
And around Christmas, we saw just a stagnation.
Yeah.
And it was right of those sellers to pull that off the market because the market was stagnating a little bit. But we're here to tell you the spring market is happening. soon to be summer market, and we are seeing multiple offers at all price levels, and yeah, it's moving, but there's still lots of inventory. So
Right. It's that duality.
Yeah.
And it's the in-demand property, the one that's priced appropriately, shows well, in the right condition for what it's pricing, in a good
the
location.
one you actually want.
Right. Yeah. The one I showed a poor flip, but I actually didn't even show it. I called my people on the way there. I said, y'all don't want to see this one. We'll skip it and go to the next and use our time more wisely. But, with water running at the foundation, with the floors not anywhere near level, the agreeable gray paint, this one, the first indicator to me that there was going to be a challenge after I opened the door was the doorbell had fallen off the wall and shattered. I didn't even know doorbells could shatter, but it had. And I was like, oh, this is going to be a great flip. Yeah, I already know what I'm looking at here.
Okay. Well, I think that this has been a good conversation about the current state of the market. I know there's people might have more questions, and we would love it if you reach out to us with your questions.
Absolutely.
We can talk to you one-on-one, answer those questions.
Absolutely. And I get a few comments from time to time underneath the video. I go in and answer those as I'm able. But if you have a real specific question, a lot of times it's just better to reach out to us directly. That way we give you a more nuanced answer than I can drop in a comment under it.
And the market's always changing, and the market for the specific thing that you might want might be different than what we've talked about. So if you have questions, reach out. And thank you so much for watching this episode.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching or listening. You can always catch us on audio on wherever you get your podcast, be Spotify, Apple, or you can watch our video on YouTube. We really appreciate you guys being here. Ask that you subscribe so we can keep you informed of everything going on here in Huntsville.